Hey everyone, welcome to the program, WRSA Radio. I am your host, G1. As always, I hope you are having a good week. I'm much better this week than last week. Last week, on Thursday, I lost my internet connection and I couldn't get it restored until Monday, which was not fun situation, as you might guess, especially when you're trying to do online courses and look for a job, those kind of things, those kind of important things. Yeah, it wasn't very fun. So it was a quiet weekend, and I did a little reading, and what news I did see was on my phone, so I had to watch in a little small screen. But what a couple of weeks that we have had, a couple of wild weeks that we have had. It's been we've had the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. We've had the resignation of the head of the Secret Service. We've had the selection of J.D. Vance to be Trump's VP candidate. And then we have this week, which is has been just as fun. We have a coup in the White House. Yeah, I said a coup, because I'm completely convinced that what we just witnessed was exactly that. This was a coup by the, I won't say inner ring, because I think the inner ring is the Biden family and those types, the real loyalists. This is the sort of immediate outer ring, the DNC people around Joe Biden. Some of the donors and those movers and shaker types. Now, I'm going to walk through this whole timeline of things because I've not seen anyone lay it all out, in a single article or video. I've seen some very good coverage of these events because the surface story that we've been told about all of these things just doesn't really add up at all. So I've seen some very good stuff. Tucker Carlson's video with Jack Posobiec, or whatever his name is. Whatever you think about those two. It was still very interesting video to watch, so you should go watch that. But the stuff just doesn't add up, and you just have to recognize that it looks all the more like this was all orchestrated. So let's go to the Trump shooting in Butler, Pennsylvania. And I don't want to get too deep into every single detail about this. I think that information is out there. What I want to do is kind of just weave a theory of the case, if you will, a theory of the event and how it unfolded. And some of that is going to be speculation on my part. I think you can figure out what that is if you've been following it, in any kind of way. So we have this young man who is the son of two mental health professionals. He is a prime candidate for having a mental health problem himself and is likely under treatment. And that is based off of what we are learning from his internet search history. And that also makes him a prime candidate for something like, an MK Ultra type operation. And we will very likely find out that someone was communicating with him via these encrypted applications, and they've mentioned encrypted applications. They haven't said specifically which ones, and they said that they have not been able to get in to all of those. But so I think that communication is happening, or was happening, and they were coaching him. I think this young man conducted a reconnaissance of the site. I think he parked his van in a parking lot, and there were explosive devices, supposedly explosive devices in the van, and he intended to set those off and create a diversion for his escape. He had a bicycle in the van, and he took this bicycle out, and he used it to ride up closer to the event and kind of around the perimeter and conduct this reconnaissance. And then he parked the bike and somehow got onto the building. There's talk about this stepladder. I haven't really seen any evidence that the stepladder was actually there or that it was used, but at any rate, he got on the building. I think he planned to use this bike to flee the area, and he was counting on the fact that he looked very young and that the police would ignore him if he was riding this bike away. And all this tells me that he, in his mind, I don't think he was on a suicide mission. I think he really believed that he was going to be able to get away with this. Now, of course, his handlers knew that that wasn't going to happen. I believe that someone actively worked to keep that roof clear and provide him the opportunity to shoot, and then they wanted him to be taken out as soon as possible. And I believe that the efforts at the RNC convention, or the events at the RNC convention, which included Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley, I believe those were put into place because insiders in the RNC were aware of what was going on. And they were putting them in position to speak about who was going to take Trump's place. I believe that is why J.D. Vance was selected to be Trump's vice president. I think there are kind of two aspects to that. One is that Vance is hated by a lot of the RNC upper echelon, and that's why Trump chose him. Now, I'll let you decide if that dislike is fake. I think it's kind of hard to fake that much dislike for somebody, at least, you know, in broad terms. Certainly some people could do that, but he draws a lot of ear from a wide range of people in the insider RNC. But regardless, I think Vance is also probably representing another faction of the RNC that wants to control Trump and have options if something happens to him. I don't know how much Trump is aware of that, or if he believes that Vance maybe is his guy, you know, because he's at least publicly said a lot of things that sound very Trumpian, if you will. You know, that part's not really that clear, at least from the outside. But, you know, just like Mike Pence was put into place to get the uniparty GOP members on board, it's sort of like a compromise, a safety valve, if you will. It's like, well, okay, we're going to have Trump there, but we're going to put our guy in just to make sure. I think Vance is there to represent some other faction trying to have some kind of insurance with Trump. So after this shooting didn't go the way that the insiders wanted it to go, I think a few things went into motion. I already mentioned that the RNC convention things happen. And I want to touch on the message of unity that was put out there by the RNC. I don't think that message was really directed at anyone outside of the RNC. I think that message was the uniparty insiders saying, hey, let's all get along, no harm, no foul, right? I think that was done to cover their own ass so that there was not calls by people to oust, you know, the most ardent anti-Trump people and shut them up. I don't think that had anything to do with trying to hold hands with the leftists and the communists. That's what it kind of came off as, you know, to sort of out from the outside looking in. I know that was a popular theory online, but I don't think that's what it was about. I think it was meant for the insiders only. It was a public way of saying something that they wanted in private to have said. Now let's get to what happened on the other side of the uniparty. The DNC insiders are now faced with a dilemma after this shooting didn't go their way. How do they deal with this? They saw that whole thing play out, and they saw the image of Trump standing there with blood on his face and the stars and stripes behind him, and they said the exact same thing that all of us said, which was, well, he just won the election. They went after the king, but they didn't get the king. The only consolation they have is that Trump does not have the official arms of the state on his side, because otherwise he would have had the absolute political capital to gut the FBI and the DOJ and the Secret Service and then launch a purge of everyone who went after him. He could have rebuilt the entire Justice Department, the entire justice system in the United States the way he wanted it, and set them loose against leftists in this country. He already has the mandate to do that, and that's what they're so damn afraid of. But he's not in power, so he can't do it. But once he is in power, the question is, can he resist the call from the public to do just that? Now, he did that last time around. He didn't, lock her up like he told people that he should, like people asked him to do, like people wanted him to do. But I don't think they're willing to take the risk of him being so lenient this time around. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. So they had to act. They had to do something to take away the heat and the attention from all of this. So they did two things. They sent that hapless manager of the Secret Service up to the Capitol Hill to be spit roasted on live TV and commit the public career destruction so they could offer her up to, appease these mass calls for accountability. It's not really accountability, though. That's not even close. But that's what we're going to get out of it. That's all they're gonna give us. They're going to act like it was accountability. Then they had to take care of the bigger problem, and that bigger problem being Joe Biden himself. Now, the writing was on the wall. It was clear to everyone who's capable of an honest opinion that Joe Biden was not going to get reelected, and it's very likely that he may not have even made it to the end of his term. So they had to decide what to do about him. They have to get him to drop out of the race at a minimum, and we may even see that they replace him completely in the coming days or weeks, because I think what has happened here was kind of a deal of sorts. Shortly after the attempted assassination of Trump, Biden does a fundraiser. I believe he was in Las Vegas. And then a rumor goes around that there was an emergency on Air Force One, and that he's being moved due to a medical emergency. And some more information's kind of come out about that. But it's all still very murky, what actually went on there. But what is clear is that Biden disappeared from public due to some kind of issue. And then it was very quickly announced that, he had tested positive for COVID. Now, that's a lie. I'll just come right out and say it. That's a lie. That COVID diagnosis was a sham. It was so that they could get him secluded into a private location, which we still aren't really clear exactly where he was at, and begin to grill his family to, get him to drop out of the race. Now, I think this has been in the works, at least in the background, as a contingency within the administration functionaries and that DNC hierarchy, the uniparty hierarchy, like I said. I believe that when this shooting didn't work, they went to Kamala and they said, look, we've chosen you to be the candidate to replace Joe. Now we have to convince Joe to drop out. And I think some kind of deal was arranged. I suspect it was along the lines of, we've chosen you and you will do this and we will make you very wealthy, but you're not calling the shots. You work for us. So they get Biden shuffled off to bed, and then they go to work on Jill and Hunter, and they read them the riot act, and they tell them that they will expose just enough to hand Hunter and other members of the family over with criminal charges, or worse. But it'll all go away if they just sign the letter for Biden to drop out. I think Hunter's going to get a pardon here very soon. I think Jill will be in some kind of standing income speaking engagement arrangement or something like that. And that's what they promised him, and so they signed off on the paper. I think Jill more than likely signed the paper, the document, the letter that was put out. And it's put out from that secret location, that hidden place that they had him. I don't know if it was Camp David or where they had him. And it goes out through different channels than it normally would go out. And that's why many of the staffers in the White House didn't even know about it until it had been published. And then Kamala is anointed. And I mean anointed. She did nothing to deserve this, okay, except be quiet. And even, even then, the things she did say during this last 4 years have made her look like a complete fool. But the party that has been screaming about our sacred democracy, trademark, well, they just took the process out of the hands of millions of Americans. And in the most blatant political shell game that we have ever seen, they replaced a candidate without even a single primary vote from their voters. The so-called delegates for the DNC simply said, oh, we'll switch. And they threw their support behind Kamala. At least that's what we're told. We never saw none of that happened publicly. None of that happened in any kind of official capacity. We just get headlines that say, Kamala has secured enough delegates to get the nomination for the Democratic Party. And not only that, but millions of dollars of political donations that were made by people who, at least tacitly, wanted Joe Biden to win. Well, now they have their money taken and put behind Kamala Harris, who I remind you, as a candidate in 2020, she was one of the first to drop out of the race because she could not get the support of more than a few percentage of her party. I'm sure that most of the voters are fine with Joe Biden not being the candidate, and they're happy to donate to someone else because, orange man bad. But I don't think they want that person to be Kamala Harris. Those people have been defrauded. And not to mention, this is likely an election campaign funding violation and breaking multiple laws in the process. But of course, nothing will happen there. Because again, orange man bad. And sacred democracy, trademark. So this is where we stand now. An almost bloodless coup. We may see Joe Biden step down from the presidency, but I think we'll definitely see less and less of him in public. He's going to be moved out of the spotlight, and the lapdog media will just simply shift their attention to Kamala to try and rebuild her image and pump her up in the eyes of the voters. It would not shock me to see her taking front and center on important decisions that have to be made in the next few months, and at least being presented and sold as being presidential and making decisions and being in power in name, even if she's not officially the president. Now, this is all, of course, a problem for us because Kamala is a lot of things, and she's probably at least as dislikable as Hillary Clinton. However, she is a plausible enough candidate for there to be, to avoid the algorithm, let's just call them election issues and have the establishment dismiss those issues as just conspiracy theory, She's plausible enough that the normies will believe the story that is put out there by the media, and little will happen. I think we had gotten to the point that Biden was so far gone that no one would believe it if he won. Everyone would look at that and go, hey, wait a minute. With Kamala, it's not necessarily a guarantee. But that's assuming, of course, that this is not just a retirement lap for her. She can run and then take all the money when she loses and shift it to other places. Put it into a foundation or something like that, or a campaign that may be out there for a while. And that she's the head of it, and she's out of public life. And I know there's hoops to jump through for that kind of thing to happen, but that seems to be the pathway for people like Hillary and Stacey Abrams. So Kamala might just be smart enough to see that the brighter side of this, if she loses, is she gets set up for the rest of her life. And it would honestly be your best option. Get the money, set yourself up, live on what you've done already, if you can call it a legacy, whatever, and then get out of the spotlight. You don't have to face the music and get up there and show everyone how much of a complete midwit you are. Yeah, that would be the best option for her. But she's not likely going to go down like that. So the game has changed a bit, but I don't think our outlook has changed at all. Spicy times are ahead at the end of this year. It's going to be dynamic and changing and challenging. So stay frosty. Now that is all that I have time for this week. Like and subscribe. Come see us over on Gab, Nice Crew, and the Dry Dock. And I will see you on the next episode.